Good morning. So today I'll be talking about 6 different functions that I would like to point out and just show off, I guess, for your knowledge. So the first one I would like to talk about today would be generate list. So let me just find it 1 second, please. And here it is. So basically, this is a function that generates a list containing n integers. The integers can be values between low and high inclusive. So the preconditions are n, low, and I are all integers. So basically, it wants you to generate a list of n length, and then each index has to have a value or an integer value between the low and the high number. So basically, what I did is I created a quick list, an empty list here. Then I made a for loop going through 0 to n. So the length of the list will become n, and it goes up by increments of 1. And then list.append a random.randit low and high. So basically it generates a random number between low and high, and then appends it to the end of the list every time the for loop goes through. So basically it adds a random number between low and high to the list for n times, creating a list of n with random numbers all between low and high. And then it just returns the list. So that's my first function. I thought it would be just good to show off some basic skills and just show that I know how some simple, basic list manipulation and for loops and things like that. So the second one I'll be talking about is called common factors, and it is this function right here. So basically, it finds a common factor of 2 numbers, and the preconditions are that it needs 2 different integers. So I started off by creating 3 empty lists, one for AA, one called BB, and then one called final. So what I did was I created 2 for loops, these two. And basically what it does, it goes through, it's a for loop that loops through the value A. And then, so basically what this for loop does is it loops through the value A. And then if A mod I equals 0, so it's basically checking or it's finding the factors of A. If this condition is if this condition is satisfied, then append this factor to the list AA. So AA is basically a list containing all the factors of A, and then it does this through all the factors of A to create a whole list of the factors. So then basically the same thing for B mod I equals 0. So if that is so, then append that factor to the list BB, and then loop through as many times to get all the factors, and then all the factors will be stored in the list BB. And then basically one last for I in range within a for I in range within an if statement. So basically it compares the 2 common factors here. So it starts off with a for I in range loop going through each index of the list AA, then a for I or a for B in range loop going through all the lists, all the indexes and values of the list BB, and then an if statement asking if AA at I is equal to BB at B, and if so, if this condition is met, then append AA at I to the final list of common factors. So this is basically finding this block of code here is basically finding all the common factors of AA and BB, and then it returns the final list of common factors. So the next function I would like to talk about is called next prime, which is this function right here. So it basically finds the next prime number of a given number, and then the precondition is that n must be an integer. So I started off with a while loop. So it's basically one while loop that runs the whole thing, that loops through the whole block of code. So the while loop keeps looping until a prime number is found, and then at the end it will stop looping if the prime number is found, and it returns it to the user, so it returns n. So basically what it does is it adds 1 to n to keep increasing every time it loops through. And if prime number at n is equal to true, so checking if it's a prime number, then return it, but if not, it'll keep looping. So basically it just loops through infinity until it finds, or it keeps looping until it finds a prime number. So the next function I'll be talking about is intersecting. Where is it now? And this is the function right here. So it is basically a function that finds whether two circles are intersecting with each other. The function takes the parameters of x1, y1, r1, and x2, y2, r, and r2 in that order. So, as you can see here. So basically, the first thing my code does is that it finds the distance between 2 points. So distance of points equals square root y2 minus y1 times y2 minus y1 plus x2 minus x1 times x2 minus x1. And then the next thing it does is it finds the distance of the radius, or between the two radiuses, by r1 plus r2. And then if distance of radius is equal or greater than the distance of points, so it's basically compare the two distances, then return true. If not, return false. So return true if the points are intersecting, return false if it is not. And then, yeah. The next function I'll be talking about is called scrambled word. So it's this function right here. However, I do have my version, and then Mr. Miskew gave him his version, which to him is, or what he said was more efficient, which is this right here. It looks like a longer piece of code than mine, but it is more efficient because there's a lot of spacing on and such. So I'll just talk about mine, since basically this is being marked on what I've created. So my loop pretty much randomizes char1 and char2, as you can see in the small block of code here. So it is random.randit 0 to the length of the word minus 1. And then it ensures that char1 is not equal to char2, basically by creating a while loop that checks if char1 is equal to char2, and if it does, then it re-randomizes char2, and it keeps doing this until they're not the same. And then once that is satisfied, once they are not the same, then it moves on. So then I created an empty string called new word, and then a for I in range loop, so a for loop that goes through the length of the word, and then it randomizes char1, char2 again. And then if else statement. So the if saying if char1, so checking if char1 is equal to I, and if that is so, if that condition is met, then new word equals new word plus word at char2. And then if this condition I equals char1 is not met, then it does the same thing for char2. If I equals char2, then add new word equals new word plus word at char1. And then else, so if neither of these two conditions are met, then do new word equals new word plus word at I. And then return new word. And then, yeah, I'm not going to go through Mr. Miskew's version because that is not my work. And then the last function I'll be talking about today is list sort. So this basically, this is a function that will rearrange a list in order from smallest value to largest value in terms of numbers. So of course you could probably guess the precondition is that the values must be integers. So I start off by saying for I in range 0, length of the list 1, so go through each index of the word list, or of the list, sorry. And then another for I in range loop, sorry, going through each length of the word of the list minus 1 index, still going up by increments of 1 in both for loops. And then an if statement stating that if I is greater than I plus 1, so it's comparing the two side-by-side indexes. And if list at I is greater than list I at plus 1, then temp equals list at I plus 1. Then list I plus 1 becomes list I, then list I becomes temp. And then it reloops until the whole list is rearranged in order from smallest to largest. Then it returns the loop. So thank you. I just wanted to show off some of my basic functions that I thought were interesting, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you and have a nice day.